Guess who got brands talking? Brandlive.co.za.
Brands talking, brands need to talk, brands need to integrate. Brands actually have got the similar problems in terms of the businesses and the struggles they go through. And the only way that we are going to find solutions is when we talk about them, because all the solutions have to come from ourselves. Now tell me, Mimi, how refreshing was having Ashraf on the show?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the session again. It was really incredible. Ashraf was, I learned so much. And I mean, what I liked is just his really unique approach. The fact that he is bringing two worlds that don't seem to have a lot in common, fashion and automotives. And then when you actually look at it, you see how, as he so correctly put it, how much we can learn. How much fashion can learn from automotives, and it was really amazing. I mean, like when he starts mentioning things like standardizing
Production and
production lines, all those things that we take for granted in fashion, because I don't know, maybe it's because we think we people in fashion tend to think small and plan small, and we don't always think we can go all the way.
No, for sure.
And what I really enjoyed is how he was talking about specializing. I think it opens up the scope for so many other people, that there's just so much more. A lot of people have got a passion for cars and a passion for fashion.
But where do they take it from there? I think for me, it's like he was saying. If you think of where they come from, their background, they didn't let that hold them back. But also to become one of the cutting edge technology companies, not only in South Africa but the world. It's incredible, and now they're really reaping the rewards. As he said, he was going to Zambia, he's been to Zim. Massive opportunity. They've got the know-how. It's only a matter of time before their cross-border and international business really picks up. And the nice thing is, nobody can just replicate that for you. We're talking about years of just plowing and years of skill, and now they've got this beautiful factory, by the way, which is in Krugersdorp, in the dilapidated side of town. But they've not chose to leave. They've chose to continue there because it's a heritage site. It's not only heritage, but that's where they are from, and just sticking to their roots, sticking to their guns, and just inspirational all round.
Also great what he said about how they take people who don't have a matric qualification, people who don't have much of an education, but who are interested in learning. Because that's another thing about fashion, that definitely a formal education will help you, but not having a formal education would not stop you from being productive in fashion and playing a very important part in going as high as you can. So it is amazing that there is still a way or that says wherever you are, whatever level you're at in your education, there is room for you. There is an industry that can take your skill and help you earn a living.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the whole point of what we were discussing with the Technicons, in terms of the inexperienced graduate versus the person who has had no skill but has been working in a heavy industrialized shirt making factory for the last 5 years. Who has got more skill? Who is able to pick up and move on? But you got to think about drive, like Ashraf said. You got to think about ambition, and that's what we are saying to young South Africans at the moment. That okay, once you've got the skill, I mean, everyone now is thinking about the end of the year, what they're going to be doing next year, especially kids that have graduated from matric, going into whatever field that it is that they're going into. You got to think long term. You got to you can't be wasting parents' money. You start one thing and then after 6 months, no, that's not what I want to do. Then you change, then you switch, and then you change. I think people must have the ambition, people must have the drive. And even if you don't have the ambition or drive, once you've graduated, it's okay to humble yourself to go get work experience. I think that is very important.
True. Like any work experience makes a difference. I mean, you can get somebody with 2 degrees who's never even worked at a supermarket or at a restaurant, as opposed to somebody who has 0 degrees but has got 10 years experience. You're talking to different people. chances are one of them can walk into a job, they've gained some skill and perform. The certain fundamentals also you learn about working. One of those things that you understand you can never be ruled by your likes or dislikes. Things have to be done when they need to be done, And somebody who's never held a job might find it difficult to adjust when, you've been studying all your life, controlling your life in a way. Because I think when you're a student...
And controlling emotion. What happens when, you're sitting there as a young graduate and...
You were going to knock off and go have drinks with your friend and your boss says, let's finish?
Yeah, your boss says this. Or your boss just comes in and asks, what the hell are you doing? You're just wasting time here. And, it happened to me as a young person. I became all emotional. I wanted to quit the job. But, like you said, you cannot be ruled by your likes and dislikes. You've got to keep your head up. You've got to keep going, Times are tough, but tougher times outlast the tough times. Tougher people, excuse me, outlast the tough times.
Just thinking of what he was saying about standardization of things and how... what it will take for fashion to move forward, taking a few lessons from automotive. I was thinking of our other guest last week, the previous time, Mo, who spoke of the brand narrative. If you think about it, a picture is emerging. That if you want to go out there and have a product or a service, you got to have a story. You got to have a reason. Why are you doing this? It can't just be about doing products. And I think if you understand your narrative, what is the story behind your product or your service, then you are able to do the things that Ashraf was saying. Because then you know where it's going, you've thought about it, and then you understand what standards you should be adhering to, what associations you should be connected to so that you are on par with everybody else in your industry.
So let me get this right. Once you've got the narrative, I think in the end, it just sort of leads you down the path that you need to be going to.
Ideally, it should, because then it determines who your customer is. Once you understand your own narrative, you understand who your customer is, and if you understand who your customer is, where to find them, you'll also know how to communicate to them and how much, what quantities. Like what Ashraf was saying, how in fashion, we tend to start small and just stay small.
Ish.
We don't, people don't upscale. They don't go into fashion with the idea of upscaling because people are scared of, but upscaling doesn't mean mass production. It can be if you want it. That's also okay. Nothing wrong in that. All for mass production for the right product and exclusivity for the right product. I mean, it's not a one solution fits all. You just got to decide. And I think that's what your narrative does. It informs what you want to do, how you should plan your production. But the thing about upscaling is it also seems like we don't always have the right structures in our country. If somebody wants to upscale, very sad story was telling a designer who goes overseas, gets an order, but nobody can do certain things for him. It's like until when and then what? What must happen?
Until when and then until what? Now, obviously, we had a very hectic week in terms of the news front. Did you see what happened with VBS Bank?
Sure, some things just very sad, very frustrating. I hope as a nation we get to a stage where we can protect ourselves and each other from things like that. I mean, you think of how people are struggling around where all these things are happening, how things like that could have helped so many people. And, people often wonder why
the brazen looting, the one thing.
Why bad people get away with murder and the weak are victims. But I guess our answers lie in making the weak strong. How do we fortify the weak? Is the question. But because I think this is what it's about. You cannot control the thieves, the looters, the whatever, the wrongdoers.
Look, I'm not saying don't steal.
You can't do much to the perpetrators, but maybe the deterrent lies in making the weak stronger. How do you fortify the weak?
Well, in nature, the weak don't survive. Huh?
Yeah, they do. I think what's important is that people need to realize their own power. The weak need to get up and not the victims. The victims are not so weak, but they're underplaying their role. There is a way. These half of these people are elected officials. We put them in those positions. So we must be able to sit down with them at some point and negotiate what we want. I don't think it's about you can leave it at that. We need to be having these conversations, and they mustn't happen every 5 years with the vote. I think that there is a way, and we must have means and measures to deal with these things. We live in a world where we have American democracy, not the most perfect form of democracy, but a very good foundation and a very good guide. People like that have got checks and balances. There are ways of dealing with these things. Some of the things that happen are just really pathetic, and I don't think it's evil. It's just willpower. That it's a lack of willpower that guarantees that people get away with things. So ultimately, somebody should be accountable. Somebody should be responsible.
I feel, as a black person, I personally take it very, very personal that we had a black bank. This was the first opportunity that we had something that was positive, and that VBS did a lot of good work. They funded a lot of houses in terms of black people that couldn't get funding from the traditional banks. They funded a lot of businesses that also couldn't get funding from traditional banks.
Damn,
Here was
find us.
here was an opportunity for us to take things to the next level, and within 2 years, the whole thing has just been looted. I mean, I'm not. Corruption is there.
You're crying over spilled milk.
Corruption will always happen, but when one individual takes 325 million out of 200 million, I mean,
Really?
it's just astonishing. That's just
Are
it's
those the kind of
flabbergasting.
figures we're talking?
Yeah.
I-
One individual.
I have no words.
And you can imagine, out of the 2 billion that was there, straight 1 billion was just looted. The rest was used obviously for loans. And they're closing shop. Over 200 people are getting retrenched from the bank itself. If you think of the
And all
current,
the indirectly connected businesses that were linked to them, the girl who was making them flyers, their PR company, just think of that. It's not just when something like that happens, it's not just the employees who suffer. It's everything else to do with that business. The caterer who was doing the functions. Always think of it like that when you think of a collapse of black business. The other day somebody said, I read something on Facebook which really struck me. It says most black businesses don't need funding, but they need us to buy from them. And that is a very, very different way of thinking.
word is bond, man. That's deep.
Because if people are, one of the things about people buying your products, the fact that you could create products and sit with them and sit with a fat bank loan, and you're paying your rent, but nobody's buying your product. So sure, you are sustaining yourself one way or another, not through sales, but through a loan. But what you miss out and you lose out on is the ability to create products, convert ideas. It's sad, you as a creator and as a business person, I think you want to see your ideas translating. You want to see your ideas come alive. So it is really sad that so it's not enough just for people to sustain themselves. What goes even further, if people are coming to buy the products, it is a great opportunity also for market research. As a business owner, talking to your customers, you get to understand what your customers want, so you can improve the product or the experience for them. You can come up with new ideas. It's good all around for everyone. So go out and support your businesses. So support black business. It's the only way they're gonna survive. I mean, loans is one thing. Yeah.
And then to make things
I know
worse,
people go and get a loan before they've even had a first customer, like a compelling right to exist. And when I say customer, as this product that you're coming up with, does somebody else want it? Because you could create the most beautiful products, but if you are not addressing a particular need in society, it's almost useless.
and to make things worse, the Springboks lost the All Blacks after having
Very sad. I'm always
such a lead,
conflicted when Springbok
such a
plays All
lead.
Blacks. Because, favorite team in the world versus my country that I love, and I want my country to win. But you just sit there watching the poeticism of New Zealand on the field, and you can't help but love it.
It's a way of thinking, Everyone always thinks that New Zealand was going to play it wide. They mixed it up with the forwards. They took the traditional Bok game
They
and
make
beat
me
them.
sit and watch rugby in New Zealand. When New Zealand plays South Africa, I make sure I sit.
Yeah, and obviously our tactics were wrong. People were substituted at the wrong time. But that's the nature of the game, and that's why we love this game. That's why the ball is not
Anything can
round, it's
happen.
oval. anything can happen. And you know, last week's rugby game was a testament to that. But the nice thing is the Springboks are on the up, and more importantly, we've got a black rugby captain. Wow, Siya Kolisi, what a player, man, what a man, shame. And the hard thing is when the Springboks lose, everyone always questions his captaincy. But in the past, it never really was that, you know, it was more the coach. So it's interesting times.
I just think
He's the first, and I think the first of a long list of guys that are going to captain the Springbok rugby captain. And unfortunately, they're going to be Amaxhosa because traditionally that's where the game has been played, you know.
No, definitely rugby is a game of emotions. I mean, people feel strongly about the rugby. I remember when what's his name? When Richie McCaw was captain, and Richie happened to get an injury, and they were the media in New Zealand was reporting how the country was just going to go into a depression the next day. They you know, and the kind of topic that we're having is, where were you when you heard the news? Where were you when you heard the news that Richie McCaw had been injured? That's just that kind of love that New Zealanders have for their rugby. And I think South Africans feel the same way. And if they lose, somebody has to be blamed. It's, you know, and the captain will always take a rap. Come on. If it's not the captain, it's the coach. Somebody must get blamed.
Or the team collectively.
So
You know, something needs to be done.
So I guess.
But anyway, guys, it was an incredible hour that we had together. This is the Fashion Blueprint. We're signing off. So privileged, so humbled by having Mr. Ashraf Ishmael come in, a leader, a man of style, who's transcended from the motors industry into fashion. And yeah, we'll be back next week. And please keep it on lock. Sorry we weren't here last week. You know how life goes sometimes. But the show must go on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining in. Thanks for the love. Thank you for the questions and comments. And yeah, if any of you would like to get hold of Ashraf, hit us up on Brand Live. And he had some interesting things to say. And I think we'd love to have him back on. You know, we've got a lot of follow up. We've got to bring Mo in to the studio to finish our conversation. And Ashraf, still a lot to talk about. Thank you. Lots of love.
Over
Happy
and out.
Friday.
Harnessing the power of talk radio. Brandlive.co.za